am the sleepy art historian. I create slow explorations of art history, spoken at a pace to invite sleep. Tonight we'll wander through the painted caves of prehistory. We'll travel softly into Chauvet in France, with its lions and rhinos etched across undulating walls, into Lascaux, the great gallery of bulls and horses, and into Altamira in Spain, with its crimson bison glowing against the stone. If you enjoy drifting through these quiet reflections on art history, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these stories flowing. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'm glad to have you here. This is a time to slow down and let your mind drift as the words flow softly around you. And just a gentle reminder, while these episodes are designed to relax and calm you, they are not a substitute for medical advice or professional care. Now, let us begin. Imagine yourself stepping slowly into the hush of a cavern. You feel the earth beneath your feet, uneven and grounding. Somewhere ahead, a flame trembles, soft, golden, alive. In the earliest days of humankind, fire was more than warmth. In the dark hollows of caves, its glow transformed stone walls into shifting screens. Shadows leapt and stretched across the rock, and in that trembling light, imagination awoke. Close your eyes if you like, and picture those early fires. Bundles of dried twigs snapping gently, resin hissing, the red-orange tongues of flame licking upward, illuminating patches of wall. The cave becomes a breathing body, alive with flickers. Every ripple in the stone is accentuated, every contour given depth. This was the atmosphere in which the first cave painters worked. The stone itself was never blank. It was already alive with form and texture. And in the wavering firelight, images hidden within the rock seemed to stir, inviting human hands to trace their outlines. Archaeologists believe that before the earliest figures were drawn, there were moments of pure watching. People sitting by the fire gazing at the rocks, seeing animals emerge in the shifting shadows. A bulge in the wall might suggest the flank of a bison. A crack might resemble the antlers of a deer. This interplay between chance and perception may have sparked the earliest gestures of art. The hand reached out with a piece of charcoal, and suddenly vision became visible. The materials were simple: charred wood, powdered ochre, crushed minerals. But in that firelit space they were more than matter. The earth itself gave pigment: iron oxide for reds, manganese for blacks, kaolin for whites. These were not only colors, they were extensions of the land. Imagine grinding a stone until it becomes dust, mixing it with water, fat or spit, feeling the paste thicken between fingers. Imagine dipping a fingertip into it and smearing it onto a cold wall, the surface rough yet receptive. The first marks must have carried both awe and tenderness. The fire crackled, filling the chamber with faint smoke. Shadows wavered, and in those shadows, the painted shapes took on motion. A line drawn across a rock seemed to quiver as the flame moved. The eye saw not only a drawing, but an animation, an unfolding presence. To watch animals flicker in firelight may have felt like calling them into being. The cave was no longer silent stone. It was a theatre of transformation. Consider for a moment the sound of that early world. The low roar of flame, the gentle percussion of dripping water, the occasional shuffle of feet on gravel. Against this backdrop, someone breathes, steady, intent. The brush of a hand against rock, the tapping of a tool. Each sound absorbed into the acoustics of the chamber, resonant, echoing slightly. These caves were not empty. They held sound as much as image. The fire gave light, but it also amplified presence, enfolding human figures in a cocoon of warmth and resonance. Now, allow yourself to imagine the visual impression. The walls, once blank, slowly begin to host shapes, lines thickening into forms, curves becoming bodies. Perhaps the first attempt was tentative. A single horn, a tail, a suggestion of movement. Then more confident strokes, guided by both memory and imagination. Animals that were feared, admired, hunted, horses, lions, mammoths, took their place in the living rock. Firelight gave them breath, making them seem to shift and run along the wall. The ritual of fire and painting was not only practical, it was deeply symbolic. Fire connected sky and earth, warmth and survival. It was the boundary between night and safety, wilderness and community. To bring fire into the cave was to bring the sun underground, and within that glow, art was born. The first flicker of light on cave walls was the first stage of human dreaming made visible. Let yourself rest here, in this beginning. Feel the weight of the cave's silence. Imagine the slow pulse of flame, the earthy smell of smoke, the gentle rhythm of dripping water. The walls are alive with suggestion. The first marks are appearing. Art is awakening in the glow. Now the journey carries us deeper into one of the most extraordinary sanctuaries ever uncovered, the Chauvet Cave in southern France. Hidden for tens of thousands of years, it was sealed by a rockfall, preserving its wonders like a time capsule. When discovered in 1994, the world was astonished. Within those cool chambers, on walls untouched by human sight for millennia, appeared a bestiary more vivid than anyone had imagined. Lions without manes stalking in pairs, rhinos with horns tilted in combat, horses with flowing manes, bears, panthers, bison. The cave walls breathe with their presence, as though we had stumbled into a prehistoric dream. Picture yourself standing at the entrance. The air is chilled, dense, with the scent of mineral dampness. Your breath curls faintly in the coolness. A torch flares, and the first figures emerge from the dark. Lions. Not the shaggy-maned lions we know from Africa today, but cave lions, larger, sleek, formidable. Painted in charcoal outlines, their bodies stretch across the wall, elongated and fluid. The artist captured not only form, but posture, tension, the ripple of strength beneath the skin. These lions are alert, moving silently through stone corridors, their gaze fixed on unseen prey. The lions of Chauvet are unusual in prehistoric art. Unlike most cave animals, they are not shown being hunted. Instead, they prowl independently, symbols of power and mystery. Some scholars wonder if they held a special meaning, embodying something more than mere quarry. Perhaps they were guardians of the cave, or emblems of fear, or companions in spiritual visions. The truth remains veiled, yet when you gaze at them in imagination, you feel their vitality. They seem awake even now, as though time has not dimmed their eyes. Beside the lions, other creatures gather. A panel of rhinoceroses, stocky, horned, dynamic, faces one another as if locked in contest. The lines repeat, overlapping slightly, suggesting motion. It is as though the artist was trying to capture not a single instant, but the sequence of a charge, a collision of massive bodies. You can almost hear the thud of hooves, the scrape of horn against horn, the tremor in the ground. The drawing becomes kinetic, the wall alive with sound and force. Chauvet's walls are not smooth sheets, but undulating stone. The artist worked with these natural shapes, using curves to emphasize haunches, slopes to suggest shoulders. The rock is collaborator as much as canvas. By firelight, the contours animate the animals further. The bulge of limestone becomes the swell of muscle. A hollow becomes a shadowed flank. The painters must have chosen locations carefully, guided by the stone's own language. It is as if the animals were already there, waiting to be revealed. Pause, and let your senses imagine the atmosphere. The silence is thick, yet not empty. Every movement echoes faintly. Soft footsteps, the hiss of torch flame, the distant drip of water. In this enveloping hush, the painted animals loom larger than life. The lions, the rhinos, the horses, they are not mere drawings. They are companions in ritual, presences in a sacred theatre. Their eyes seem to watch back, unblinking, through the veil of millennia. Horses, too, fill Chauvet's walls. One famous panel shows a procession of horse heads, overlapping in elegant rhythm. Their ears are pricked, nostrils flared, manes etched with quick strokes. Each head carries an individuality, yet together they form a chorus of movement. Imagine the flickering fire casting them into subtle animation. The horses appear to shift, to breathe, to turn their heads in unison. The cave becomes a stable of spirits, alive with equine energy. And among these grand animals, there are subtler details. The paw prints of cave bears pressed into the floor, scratches on the walls where claws once raked the stone. Evidence of lives intertwined, animals sheltering in these hollows long before or after humans entered. The cave remembers both, holding traces of coexistence across deep time. Chauvet is not merely an art gallery, it is an encounter with presence. The lions move silently through darkness, the rhinos thunder without sound, the horses breathe in stillness. You, standing with your torch, feel both awe and humility. These creatures belong to a world both familiar and impossibly distant. Their images are 30,000 years old, yet they reach across time with immediacy, as though the artist just stepped away, leaving the fire still smouldering. Let yourself linger here. Feel the cool dampness of the air, the echoing hush of stone chambers. See the lions prowling in black lines, the rhinos tilting in combat, the horses lined in procession. They are watching you as much as you watch them. And in this watching across time, you sense the profound continuity of being human, the impulse to see, to imagine, to bring life onto stone. Step deeper into the Chauvet galleries, where animals are not only drawn, but set in motion. On one wall, a series of rhinoceroses appears, not just a single figure, but multiple outlines, layered and repeated. The horns tilt forward in slightly different positions. The bodies overlap, suggesting the passage of time, the sequence of a charge. Imagine standing in that chamber by torchlight. The flame flickers, and the lines blur into a tremor of motion. The rhinos no longer stand still. They rush, collide, clash in an invisible thunder. This layering is one of the oldest known attempts at animation. The artists were not content with static representation. They sought to show rhythm, movement, vitality. Horses, too, are painted in groups, manes flowing, heads turning. They are drawn with acute sensitivity to proportion, their eyes wide, their nostrils open as though breathing hard. Some panels show them galloping in unison, their bodies curved to the rhythm of the wall's contours. In the shifting glow of fire, they seem to pulse forward, one after another, alive within the stone. Movement is not only visual here, it is embodied. Imagine the painter leaning close to the wall, crouching low, stretching upward. The hand moves quickly, sketching lines with charcoal, smudging with fingertips to soften contours. The body mirrors the imagined movement of the animal. To draw a running horse, the painter's arm sweeps in arcs, capturing the curve of muscle, the thrust of stride. Each gesture contains kinship, the rhythm of human motion echoing the rhythm of animal motion. Close your eyes and picture this dance. The cave is dim. The torch sways. A black line appears, another, then curves overlap, creating depth. The horses gather, one beside the other, until the wall becomes a meadow of forms. The rhinos tilt their horns, repeated in ghostly sequence, until you feel the impact of their confrontation. It is a choreography of images, a ballet of charcoal and stone. Sound, too, becomes part of this sensation. Imagine the low echoes as voices murmur, as a torch crackles, as a foot scuffs against gravel. The cave responds with resonance, amplifying and blending. To those present, the soundscape and the sight fused into a single experience. The animals were not silent. They were felt through vibration, through the mind's ear, through the heartbeat of those watching. There is a mystery in these sequences. Were they meant to capture a memory of the hunt, a vision from dream, a ritual invocation to ensure abundance? Or were they simply expressions of wonder, the irresistible urge to trace what the eye admired? Whatever the intent, the result is clear. The walls themselves became kinetic, alive with motion that still breathes 30,000 years later. Let yourself rest in this movement now. The horses surge across the walls, their manes flowing. The rhinos collide, their horns striking sparks of imagination. The dance of lines continues, steady, timeless. In the dark of the cave, art begins to move. To understand these paintings, we must touch the pigments themselves, those humble, earthly substances that became vessels of vision. Imagine kneeling on the cave floor, gathering lumps of mineral. Iron oxide, red as blood, ground into ochre. Manganese dioxide, deep and velvety, giving blacks that absorb light. Charcoal from burnt wood, brittle yet potent, leaving bold trails. White calling clay, pale as bone, offering contrast. These were not exotic materials. They came from the earth, gathered from riverbanks, cliffs, and fires. Yet in human hands they became alchemy, grinding stones against stones, powder formed, staining fingers. Spit or animal fat mixed with dust to make a paste, smooth and pliable. A brush of chewed twig or a swab of moss carried the pigment onto stone. Sometimes fingers alone did the work, smearing, pressing, spreading colour into shape. The sensation must have been intimate. The cool stone beneath the hand, the gritty pigment softening into paint. A line became a flank, a curve became a mane. Matter became meaning. Think of the colours in that dim light. Ochre glowing warm orange like embers. Charcoal black, rich and bold against pale limestone. The red-brown of hematite echoing the earth's core. These hues, though limited, were endlessly expressive. A smudged shadow here, a bright line there, the illusion of volume conjured from simplicity. Firelight animated them further, deepening reds, softening blacks, giving shimmer to pale whites. The cave became a canvas of elemental tones. Tools extended the artist's reach. Hollow bones sometimes served as blowpipes, letting pigment be sprayed onto walls. Through this, handprints were made, the palm pressed against stone, paint blown around it, leaving a silhouette. Brushes could be fashioned from hair, sticks, feathers. Scrapers incised lines, sharpening edges. Each tool left its own signature, a texture on the wall that still speaks to us across time. In creating pigments, humans entered into dialogue with the land. They knew which stones yielded colour, which fires produced the best charcoal. They must have cherished certain veins of ochre, carrying them from far away, treasuring their richness. This was not only practical, it was spiritual. To grind the earth into paint was to take the land's essence and transform it into vision. Earth became image. Stone spoke back through line and colour. Pause now and imagine holding a piece of charcoal, its tip crumbling slightly, leaving dark streaks on your skin. Imagine dipping it against a stone wall, feeling the texture catch the pigment. Each mark is immediate, alive. The pigment breathes with Earth's memory, carrying warmth of fire, weight of stone, depth of soil. This is the alchemy of art, the world transformed into vision through touch. Rest here in the colors, the glow of ochre, the shadow of black, the shimmer of pale clay. They rise softly on the cave wall, breathing presence into the dark. The caves themselves were never blank slates. Their walls are ridged, pitted, rippling with natural formations. For early artists, these textures were not obstacles but invitations. Imagine stepping into a chamber where the limestone bulges outward like a bison's shoulder, or dips inward like the hollow of a belly. The painter's eye recognized these shapes, completed them with lines. The cave collaborated, offering its own suggestions. In Chauvet, in Lascaux, in Altamira, the surfaces guide the art. A fissure becomes the line of a mane. A crack becomes the antler of a deer. A swelling becomes the curve of a haunch. The painters did not impose images upon stone. They coaxed them out, like uncovering figures hidden within. This sensitivity to surface makes the art inseparable from place. The animals do not float. They belong, born from the walls themselves. By torchlight, the textures came alive. Shadows deepened hollows, highlights glowed on ridges. An animal painted on such a wall gained depth without effort. The wall was not flat. It breathed, shifted, created illusion. The painter anticipated this, choosing spots where firelight would enhance the sense of life. In this way, the cave became both stage and actor, participating in the performance of image. Touch plays a role too. Imagine running your hand along cool limestone, feeling grooves, bumps, roughness. To paint upon it was to engage not only sight, but touch. The artist's fingers followed contours, responding to texture as much as vision. The surface directed the gesture. The result is harmony between natural form and human imagination. This interplay may explain why caves were chosen at all. Open rock surfaces existed outdoors, but inside caves the walls carried more mystery. Their folds and undulations, half seen in darkness, suggested beings waiting to emerge. To paint here was to reveal presences concealed within the earth. The cave became womb, theatre, shrine. Its textures whispered the forms that human hands completed. Now allow yourself to imagine this intimacy. Stand in front of a wall. The limestone curves outward. You trace it with your fingers. You see in its shape the flank of a horse. Slowly, with charcoal, you draw along the curve, completing what was already half visible. The horse emerges, not from you alone, but from the stone itself. Together, you and the wall create life. Rest in this sensation. The caves are not passive. They are alive with texture, suggestion, presence. The animals emerge from their surfaces as if they had always been there, waiting for fire and touch to awaken them. Step gently now, further into the labyrinth. The outer world is far behind you, left at the cave's mouth where sunlight fades and winds pass by. In here, the air cools with every step. You feel the weight of earth above, solid and sheltering, enclosing you in a chamber where silence deepens. These caves were never mere shelters. They were thresholds, sacred interiors set apart from daily life. To come here was to leave behind the chatter of survival, to step into a realm where the spirit of stone seemed to breathe. Picture the journey of those first visitors. Torches made of resinous pine wood flared and smoked, their light golden at the edges, casting more shadow than clarity. Narrow passages twisted unpredictably, hands brushed against cold, damp walls. Sometimes one had to crouch low, pressing close to stone, crawling through tight spaces before emerging into sudden, soaring chambers. At each turn, darkness was complete until touched by flame. The deeper one went, the further one travelled not only in space but in meaning, crossing thresholds from the everyday to the extraordinary. When the group finally entered the decorated chambers, silence reigned. But this was not empty silence. It was thick, resonant, alive. Every movement echoed, the scuff of a foot against gravel, the faint crack of a torch as it consumed sap, the soft exhale of breath. The walls returned these sounds with their own voice, gentle, lingering. To early humans, such silence may have been charged with presence. The caves seemed to hold something vast, invisible, listening. Imagine sitting within this quiet. Your breathing slows, your heartbeat steadies, your body adjusts to the cool air. In the half-dark, the painted figures begin to emerge. Horses, lions, bison. Their lines quiver in the flickering torchlight, so that they seem not fixed but alive. The wall becomes a membrane between worlds, a place where vision and reality overlap. What is painted here feels potent, as though charged with unseen power. Scholars have long debated the purpose of cave paintings. Some see them as sympathetic magic. To paint the hunt was to ensure its success. Others suggest they were teaching tools, a way of showing younger hunters the forms of animals, the curves of their bodies, the movement of their limbs. Still others view them as spiritual, visions captured during trance or dream, offered back to the cave as prayer. Whatever the purpose, the setting itself speaks clearly. These were not casual decorations of a dwelling space. They were created in hidden sanctuaries, at great effort, with deliberate intent. Consider how it must have felt for a small group to gather here. Picture 5 or 6 people huddled together, their faces lit by the orange glow of torches. One kneels before the wall, painting with slow, steady strokes. Another hums or chants, imitating the low bellow of a bison or the whinny of a horse. The sounds reverberate, bouncing back in layered echoes. The cave itself becomes part of the ritual, responding with its voice. Firelight animates the animals, making them gallop or breathe as shadows dance across the curves of stone. The people are surrounded, immersed in a living theatre where art, sound, and movement converge. Even today, Those who enter these caves under controlled conditions speak of an extraordinary sensation. The weight of silence, the charged atmosphere, the looming figures. It feels as though one is not alone. The animals on the walls are not simply pictures. They carry presence, eyes that seem to watch back. There is a hush that goes beyond sound, a stillness that touches the body like unseen hands. One feels humbled, connected, folded into something immense. Let yourself imagine resting in this chamber. You are seated on cool stone, your back against the wall. A torch burns nearby, its smoke curling upward. The air smells faintly of minerals, damp earth and resin. In the silence, every drop of water that falls from the ceiling is magnified, echoing like a bell in the distance. The painted animals loom softly in the glow, their outlines alive, their forms hovering between reality and dream. You feel safe, cocooned in the hush, aware that you are inside a space once reserved for reverence. Stay here a moment longer. Breathe slowly. Feel the weight of the cave around you, protective and vast. The silence deepens, not empty but full, resonant with echoes of human hands and voices long past. This is ritual space, where art was prayer, and where silence itself was presence. Now the path carries us north, into the rolling valleys of the Dordogne in France. Here, in 1940, 4 boys stumbled into a secret that would astonish the world. Following their dog down a narrow hole, they entered chambers sealed for millennia. Their torchlight revealed a spectacle so vast, so radiant, that it seemed like a cathedral carved into the earth. They had discovered Lascaux, the great gallery of Ice Age art. And at its heart, like an altar, lies the Hall of the Bulls. Close your eyes and step into this hall. Imagine a chamber large enough to feel like a temple, more than 20 feet across, its ceiling curving high like the arch of the sky. Your torchlight flares and suddenly the walls are alive. Towering above you are bulls, massive, black, ochre, red, some over 15 feet long. They circle the chamber, powerful and graceful, each one drawn with such conviction that they seem to move when the fire trembles. Horses gallop nearby, deer leap with slender legs, their antlers branching into delicate crowns. The hall surrounds you in a pageant of forms, an encircling procession of beings. The bulls dominate, immense and commanding. Their horns are painted with double curves, so that both are seen at once, a technique that defies realism but heightens clarity. This was not naive work. It was thoughtful, expressive, sophisticated. The bulls face in different directions, overlapping as if circling the chamber. Some stand broad and still, others tilt forward as though in motion. Together they create a rhythm, a balance of stillness and surge. Now imagine the colors by torchlight. The ochre glows warm, like embers. Black lines in charcoal stand firm, outlining bodies with confidence. Red accents shimmer faintly, catching the fire. The undulating stone adds depth, bulging outward here, hollowing inward there, giving the illusion of muscle and shadow. The animals seem not painted upon the wall, but born from it. As the torch shifts, the bulls appear to advance, then retreat, as if circling the space in endless rhythm. Pause for a moment and picture yourself small beneath them. The bulls tower above, their bodies spanning the wall with monumental presence. Yet lean closer, and you see the intimacy of brushwork. A smudge left by a fingertip, a line softened by a palm, a curve repeated until it felt true. The grandeur of the hall rests on the simplicity of human touch. Vast vision emerges from small gestures, the sweep of a hand, the grind of pigment, the flicker of fire. Scholars often describe the Hall of the Bulls as a sanctuary, a place where humans gathered not to live, but to commune. Imagine a group standing together in awe, torches lifting their light to the ceiling. The bulls circle them, the horses prance, the deer leap. They are enveloped in art, surrounded by beings greater than themselves. For those who entered, this must have felt like a world transformed, a place where stone became alive, where humans stood not as masters, but as witnesses to a greater order. Even now, when modern eyes behold it through photographs or replicas, the effect is profound. The scale humbles, the artistry astonishes, the vitality stirs wonder. But within the cave itself, in that hushed chamber where sound echoes and light dances, the impact must have been overwhelming. To be there was to stand inside a vision, to inhabit a dream painted across stone. Rest now inside this hall. Let the bulls loom above you, their horns sweeping wide, their bodies strong and luminous. Let the horses encircle you with their motion, the deer leap gracefully past. Feel the chamber breathe, vast yet intimate, alive with images. You are within humanity's first cathedral, a sanctuary where vision and reverence became one. Among all the wonders of Lascaux, the horses stand apart. They carry a vitality that feels immediate, as though they could break free from stone and gallop into the air. Imagine stepping closer to a panel where a herd gathers. Bodies overlap in graceful rhythm, heads tilt, manes flow in quick black strokes. Some horses are small and muscular, competent and steady. Others are slender, long-necked, alert. Each is distinct, yet together they form a pulse, a living rhythm painted into stone. One of the most celebrated images, sometimes called the Chinese horse, shows a single animal in profile. Its belly is rounded, full with life, shaded carefully with ochre. The head is small, delicate, precise. The mane is short, rendered in fine black lines. Its legs taper into slender points, poised as though ready to move. The creature seems at once fragile and powerful, a blend of delicacy and strength. Firelight would make its form shimmer, the rounded belly catching glow, the black outline holding firm, so that the horse seemed to breathe in the dark. Other panels hold entire herds. Horses overlap, layered one upon another. Their bodies curve, their heads turn, their limbs fold in motion. The repetition is deliberate, suggesting sequence, rhythm, continuity. By torchlight, These overlapping forms blur so that the horses appear to run together, galloping endlessly in circles. The wall becomes a meadow alive with soundless hooves and flickering motion. The artistry is striking. Shading with ochre creates the illusion of volume, depth, weight. Bold black lines anchor contours, defining necks and backs with confidence. Subtle smudging softens edges, making bodies swell with breath. The natural curves of the limestone are used with precision. A swell of rock becomes a horse's flank. A hollow becomes a shadowed belly. The painter understood anatomy deeply. The arch of a neck, the bend of a hock, the swell of muscle, and translated it into flowing form. These are not static diagrams. They are beings infused with spirit. Pause and consider the role of horses in that Ice Age world. They were game to be hunted, providing meat, hide, sinew. Yet they were also admired, observed, followed across the plains. To see a herd of wild horses running, manes flying, hooves striking the ground, must have stirred both desire and awe. In painting them, humans captured not only the animal's shape, but the experience of its presence, the speed, the energy, the restless beauty of motion. Imagine now the atmosphere of painting. The cave is dim, filled with the scent of burning pine. A painter crouches low, shading a belly with ochre, blending with fingertips. Another leans close, drawing swift lines to shape a mane. Shadows flicker, the herd shifts. The painters breathe in rhythm with the images, their bodies moving as if galloping alongside. The act of painting becomes a dance, a ritual of motion mirrored in gesture. When you stand before these panels, even across thousands of years, you feel the effect. The horses are not simply there to be seen. They gather you into their herd. Your eye moves from one to the next, carried along by their rhythm. You hear, in imagination, the muffled thunder of hooves, the rush of air. The cave becomes not an enclosed chamber, but an open plain, a horizon alive with running forms. Let yourself rest in that sensation. Picture the herd circling you, endless, tireless. Their manes stream back. Their flanks gleam red and black. Their hooves lift in perpetual gallop. You are surrounded by movement, carried into rhythm, immersed in timeless motion. The horses of Lascaux still run, not across grass or snow, but across the walls of memory. And as you watch, you feel their breath of life in paint. Travel now into northern Spain, to a place where earth and art meet in glowing red. The cave of Altamira lies hidden in the Cantabrian hills, its entrance modest, its treasures within astonishing. In 1879, a little girl named Maria was exploring the cave with her father, the amateur archaeologist Marcelino Sanz de Sautola. As she lifted her lantern toward the low ceiling, she gasped, "Toros! Toros! Bulls! Bulls!" For above her stretched a vision no one had seen in thousands of years. Painted across the stone were vast animals, crimson and black, their bodies swelling with the very contours of the ceiling. For a time, few believed her father's claim. The paintings were so masterful, so vivid, that many scholars insisted they must be forgeries. But as more caves were discovered in the decades that followed, Altamira was vindicated. It remains today one of the most radiant sanctuaries of prehistoric art, often called the Sistine Chapel of the Paleolithic. Its ceiling, alive with bison, deer, and horses, is perhaps the most breathtaking example of ancient vision preserved anywhere in the world. Imagine yourself lying on the cave floor, as Maria once did, and gazing upward. The ceiling presses low, close enough that you feel as though the animals hover directly above you. The rock undulates in ridges and hollows, and into those natural shapes the painters breathed life. There are bison, enormous, some reclining, some twisting, some crouched as though ready to rise. Their legs are bent beneath them, their horns sweep outward, their flanks bulge with strength. The swell of stone itself becomes muscle and bone, so that the animals do not seem painted onto the ceiling, but born from it, sculpted in pigment and light. The colors glow even now. Red ochre, ground from iron-rich earth, radiates warmth like living blood. Black manganese lines give definition, bold and unshakable. In places, both hues blend, producing shades of depth and volume. The first true polychrome art. Muscles swell in crimson shadow, backs curve with gradation, horns gleam in black contour. The result is astonishing. Animals not as flat outlines, but as three-dimensional beings, luminous against pale limestone. Picture the painter at work. The ceiling is low. To reach it, one must lie flat on the ground, stretching upward with a brush of moss or reed, or perhaps with bare fingers. The torch sputters, smoke drifts across vision, shadows ripple across the animals. The artist adjusts, layering pigment, smudging lines, darkening horns, brightening flanks. The process is slow, deliberate, reverent. Hours pass in the hush, and when the torchlight reveals the finished bison, glowing crimson against pale stone, the effect is breathtaking, almost supernatural. The bison of Altamira are more than images. They are presences. Their sheer scale and vivid color overwhelm, filling the chamber with life. To lie beneath them is to feel both small and protected, humbled and uplifted. The ceiling becomes not just stone, but a sky of beings, a canopy of guardians. Imagine resting there, the cool rock beneath your back, the animals above surrounding you in a circle of strength. The air is still, scented faintly of minerals and smoke. A drop of water falls, echoing softly, and in that hush, the crimson bison breathe. They remind us that long before words were written, humans dreamed in images. To paint such beings was to honor them, to bind memory to stone, to offer thanks or prayer. These were not idle decorations. They were rituals of vision. The people who painted them entered the cave not for shelter, but for ceremony. The ceiling of Altamira was a place where earth, animal, and human met in glowing color, where art became a bridge between worlds. Rest now beneath that ceiling. Close your eyes if you wish. See the bison looming above. crimson flanks radiant, black horns curving, bodies swelling with life. They hover in silence, yet they speak in presence. You are not alone here. You are cradled in their gaze, sheltered by their strength, enfolded in their painted world. Beyond the sweeping animals and glowing herds, another kind of image appears in the caves, quieter, smaller, yet profoundly moving. These are the handprints. In Chauvet, in Lascaux, in Altamira, and in many other sanctuaries scattered across Europe. The walls are marked with palms and fingers, sometimes hundreds of them. They are not painted as outlines of animals, not symbols of prey or myth. They are direct imprints of human presence, the earliest signatures, whispers across time saying, "I was here." Imagine one of these hands, the palm pressed against cool, damp stone, the fingers spread wide, reaching outward, a hollow bone filled with powdered pigment raised to lips. A steady breath blown through it sends a fine mist of red or black across the surface, surrounding the hand in clouded color. The hand is withdrawn, and what remains is its silhouette. Pale where skin shielded the wall, dark around its edges where pigment settled. Negative space becomes mark. Absence becomes presence. Close your eyes and picture rows of such hands glowing by firelight. Some are large, broad, strong. Others are small, delicate, perhaps belonging to adolescents or children. Many studies suggest that a significant number of these prints were made by women, based on finger length and proportion. This detail collapses the old assumption that only men created the cave art. In these prints, we glimpse a fuller society: hunters, gatherers, women, men, children, all leaving their touch on the walls of ritual space. The arrangement of hands varies. In some chambers, they cluster together, overlapping in dense constellations. In others, they form lines stretched across walls like a procession. Sometimes a single hand stands alone, stark in its solitude. Each carries individuality, yet together they form a chorus, a community of touch. Imagine them as voices, silent yet eloquent, singing across stone. We belong here. We are part of this place. The meaning remains uncertain. Perhaps they were acts of claiming territory, declarations of "I exist, I stand within this world." Perhaps they were ritual, part of ceremonies long forgotten. Perhaps they were playful, an expression of wonder at the magic of creating an image so easily. Whatever their origin, the effect is unmistakable. The handprints bridge the gulf between us and them. Animals we may admire as art, but hands we recognize as ourselves. Picture placing your own hand against such a print. Your fingers align with the ghost of another's, separated by 30,000 years, yet touching in imagination. The stone is cool, unyielding. You feel warmth in your palm nonetheless, as if the presence of that long-vanished individual still lingers. Time collapses. Distance dissolves. Two hands meet across millennia. The caves carry many mysteries, but the handprints are the most intimate. They remind us that these artists were not anonymous shadows. They had names, voices, laughter, fears, loves. Their hands are the same shape as ours, their gestures familiar. They remind us that art was not only about animals and rituals, but also about identity, belonging, and the need to leave a trace. Now imagine a chamber filled with these hands, hundreds of silhouettes, some crisp and clear, others faded into smudged echoes. The torchlight trembles, making them seem to shift, to wave softly in greeting. You are surrounded by a community of touch, a gathering of presences. They tell you, without words, that you are part of the same long story. Rest with them now. Let the walls close gently around you, glowing with handprints. They are silent, yet they speak. They tell you simply, profoundly. We were here, we dreamed, we painted, we touched. And in their message across the gulf of time, you are not alone. When you sit in a cave, the first thing you notice is that it is never truly silent. Stone carries every sound, bending and stretching it, giving even the smallest noise a presence larger than itself. A cough becomes a rolling rumble, lingering long after the breath has stopped. The shuffle of feet across gravel echoes back in faint rhythms, as though invisible companions walk beside you. A voice, even spoken softly, swells and fills the chamber, vibrating in chest and wall alike. To enter such a place is to step inside an instrument, an architecture of resonance. Early humans were acutely sensitive to these effects. Their lives depended on listening to the movements of animals, to the crack of branches, to the whistle of wind. Inside caves, the acoustics must have seemed extraordinary, otherworldly. Archaeologists have discovered that many painted chambers correspond to areas of unusual sound properties. Where echoes are strongest, where a hum reverberates longest, there the images often appear. It is as if vision and sound were deliberately intertwined, the placement of animals chosen not only for sight, but for resonance. Imagine striking two stones together in such a space. The sharp crack leaps outward, repeating itself in softer and softer echoes, rolling away into invisible depths. Or imagine humming a low note, feeling it vibrate not only in your chest but also in the walls around you, as if the stone itself were humming back. The chamber becomes a collaborator, shaping every sound into something larger, more mysterious. Now picture a small group gathered before a painted wall. One person begins to chant, perhaps imitating the roar of a lion or the bellow of a bison. The cave magnifies the sound, layering it with harmonics until it becomes almost unrecognizable. A voice deeper and wilder than any single throat could produce. Torches flare, shadows dance, and on the wall the painted animals seem to stir, their forms trembling in the flickering light. Sight and sound merge. The bison breathe in rhythm with the chant, the horses gallop in echo, the lions prowl in vibration. Some researchers believe these acoustics shaped rituals. Footsteps pounding in unison could mimic the thundering hooves of a herd. Clapping hands might echo like distant gallops. Whistles could call back faint answers from unseen corners. To paint within such resonance was to create not just images but performances, immersive experiences where sound, light, and vision wove together. The cave became a theatre, an orchestra, a living body responding to human breath and rhythm. Consider the psychological effect. In darkness, with senses heightened, echoes could feel like presences. A whispered word returning from the walls might seem like a spirit answering. A hum vibrating in stone might feel like the voice of the earth itself. In such spaces, the boundary between self and world blurs. The painter, the chanter, the listener, all are absorbed into a larger resonance held by stone, accompanied by echoes that seem alive. Even today, when visitors enter replicas of these caves, the effect endures. Speak a single word, and it returns, softer yet somehow fuller. Sing a tone, and the chamber amplifies it, resonating in bones as well as ears. The union of echo and image creates an altered state, a deep awareness that the cave is not empty but responsive, alive, participating. Rest now in this resonance. Imagine sitting on cool stone, the torch burning low, the air damp and still. A drop of water falls, and the sound rings like a bell through the chamber. A voice hums softly, and the walls return it, tender and strong. The animals on the walls tremble in firelight, animated by vibration. You are enveloped in a world where sound lingers, where echoes accompany breath, where stone itself seems to sing. Here, in this chamber of resonance, art was never silent. It was music of pigment and echo, theatre of flame and shadow, communion of vision and vibration. To linger here is to know that stone has memory, that sound leaves its trace as surely as paint, and that both together awaken the animals of the cave into timeless life. As we drift deeper into the painted caves, one question returns again and again. Why? Why did early humans venture into such hidden, difficult places to create these images? Why risk the suffocating dark, the smoke of torches, the danger of getting lost? Why cover walls with animals larger than life drawn with such care, such passion, such beauty? The answer is not certain, and perhaps it never will be. But in that uncertainty lies a deep, soothing mystery, a space for imagination as much as history. For more than a century, scholars have offered theories. One idea is that these paintings were part of hunting magic. By painting animals, hunters believed they could capture their essence, ensuring success in the chase. The bison, horses, and deer on the walls would serve as ritual rehearsals, shadows of prey already claimed in spirit before being pursued in body. Another theory suggests the caves were places of teaching, classrooms in which the forms of animals were shown to younger members of the group, a visual language passed down by torchlight. Others imagine that these images were dreams given form, visions seen in altered states, perhaps induced by the rhythmic beat of drums, the flicker of flames, or the resonant echoes of song. Consider the setting. These caves are not on the surface, not open to daily life. They are deep, secret, hidden. To reach them requires intention, courage, and effort. That very act suggests ritual, a journey inward not only into earth but into spirit. The paintings may have been offerings to unseen powers, prayers to the mystery of existence, acknowledgements of the forces that sustained life and threatened it. And yet, as you gaze at the animals in your imagination, it is possible to think the purpose was simpler. Perhaps they painted because they loved to paint. Perhaps the joy of seeing an animal appear from the wall was reason enough. The desire to make beauty, to express vision, to leave a mark, this impulse is timeless. The cave painters may have been compelled not by magic or ritual alone, but by the sheer wonder of creating images where none had existed before. Close your eyes and picture the possibilities layered upon one another. A group gathers in silence. Someone begins to paint, hand moving with concentration, breath steady. Another sings softly, the sound resonating in the chamber. The images take shape, animals glowing into life. For some, it is hunting magic. For others, it is teaching. For others still, it is dream and vision. Each person present experiences it differently. Meaning is not singular. It is plural, woven from many strands. The mystery remains even now. We cannot ask the painters their reasons. We cannot decode every symbol, every gesture. And perhaps this is as it should be. The power of cave art lies not only in what we know, but in what we do not. To stand before those walls is to feel the pulse of wonder, the presence of a mystery too large for answers. Rest now in that mystery. Let the questions drift through you like echoes. Was it magic? Was it prayer? Was it joy? Was it dream? Let them flow gently without needing resolution. The caves whisper not with explanations, but with possibilities. And in that open space of not knowing, your mind can soften, your breath can slow, your body can ease into rest. The mystery is not something to solve. It is something to hold gently, like a flame in darkness. When you gaze at the paintings of Chauvet, Lascaux, or Altamira, what strikes you most is not only their beauty, but their age. Tens of thousands of years have passed since those hands pressed pigment to stone, yet the images remain. Time outside has changed everything: seasons, forests, rivers, languages, civilizations. But here within these caves, time seems to have paused. Step into the chamber, and you stand beside the artists as though they had just put down their torches and left. The stillness of the paintings is a stillness that has endured across ages. Consider Chauvet. Radiocarbon dating tells us its lions and rhinos are more than 30,000 years old. Painted at the dawn of the Upper Paleolithic, Lascaux is younger, perhaps 17,000 years old, yet still unimaginably distant. Altamira's ceiling dates to around 14,000 years ago. These spans are difficult to grasp. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen. Continents have been reshaped by ice and sea. Languages have blossomed and disappeared. yet the animals remain on their walls, unchanged. Imagine standing before them and feeling the weight of this continuity. The charcoal that shapes a horse's mane once burned in a fire tended by human hands. The red ochre that colours a bison was ground by stone against stone, mixed with breath or fat. The pigment has outlasted the fire, the breath, the bodies that carried it. It has outlasted empires, storms, ice ages. It is here, still vivid, still alive. To witness it is to touch something eternal. Time in the caves feels different. Outside, days pass with sunrise and sunset, the rhythm of seasons, the cycles of harvest and hunt. Inside there is only darkness and firelight, no sky, no horizon, no clocks. A painting made 30 millennia ago looks as fresh as one made yesterday. The animals exist outside of time, suspended in perpetual present. Entering the caves is like stepping into a dream that never fades, a moment held open forever. Think of the generations that separate us. Imagine a chain of people, each born, living and passing away. Hundreds of generations stretching back in unbroken sequence. And yet, at the other end of that chain, someone lifted a hand and painted these walls. That action, that gesture, reaches forward across the chain and touches us now. The gulf is vast, yet the connection feels immediate. The distance of time dissolves in the presence of the image. Some scholars describe the caves as time machines, not in the sense of mechanical transport, but in the sense that they collapse past and present. When you stand within, you are not looking back through history. You are standing beside the artists, sharing their vision. The horses breathe beside you. The bison lower their heads. The lions prowl. The present moment extends backward, merging with theirs. Let yourself feel this suspension. Imagine the stillness of a chamber where nothing has moved for millennia except the slow drip of water. The same drip that fell beside the painters falls beside you now. The air is cool, the stone unchanged. The animals watch with the same steady gaze. In that stillness, you are no longer bound by years or centuries. You rest in a timeless now. Rest deeply in this sense of continuity. The paintings endure. The silence endures. The stillness endures. Time has paused, and you are held gently within its quiet embrace. The painted caves feel timeless, yet they are fragile. For thousands of years the images rested in silence, untouched by light or breath. Sealed by stone, they endured with remarkable clarity. But once rediscovered, once entered by modern eyes, their survival grew uncertain. Human presence brings wonder, but it also brings risk. The paintings that withstood ice ages, floods, and centuries of stillness can be undone by the warmth of our breath, the oils of our skin, the spores carried invisibly in our lungs. Consider Altamira. After its discovery in the 19th century, visitors came in increasing numbers, lying on the cave floor to marvel at the bison glowing overhead. For decades, thousands passed through, their lanterns and footsteps altering the delicate balance of air and stone. By the 20th century, the ceiling began to suffer. Fungus spread, colours dulled. The cave was eventually closed to the public, replaced by an exact replica nearby. The original now rests in guarded silence, preserved but rarely entered, as though the earth itself had folded back around it to heal. Lascaux faced an even harsher fate. After its discovery in 1940, millions visited. The cave became famous, celebrated as humanity's first cathedral of art. Yet by the 1960s, disaster struck. Carbon dioxide from visitors' breath, the heat of lamps, and the presence of microorganisms began to damage the walls. Green algae spread, then white fungus. The paintings began to fade. In 1963, the cave was permanently closed. Since then, scientists have fought ongoing battles against invasive growths, tending the art as one might tend a fragile garden. Today, replicas, Lascaux 2, 3, and 4, allow people to experience the wonder without endangering the original. Chauvet, discovered more recently in 1994, has been guarded carefully from the start. Access is tightly restricted, with only a few researchers allowed inside. A replica was created quickly, allowing the public to glimpse its lions and rhinos in faithful reproduction. The original remains sealed, watched by scientists who monitor temperature, humidity, and microscopic life with exquisite care. The lesson of Altamira and Lascaux has been learned. To preserve the art, it must remain mostly unseen. There is a paradox in this fragility. These paintings are among the oldest surviving works of art, yet they are vulnerable to the smallest disturbance. A single touch could smear pigment that has lasted 30 millennia. A breath too many could alter the cave's delicate climate. Preservation requires reverence, restraint, patience. To love these works is, in part, to let them rest in silence. Imagine standing at the entrance of one of these caves, knowing you cannot go further. The path is barred, the chamber sealed. Yet nearby, in a replica built with devotion, you step inside and see the animals recreated in perfect detail. The experience is powerful, but tinged with melancholy. The originals lie in darkness, unseen, like sleeping guardians. They endure not because we behold them, but because we allow them to remain hidden. There is a tenderness in this arrangement. The caves remind us that beauty can be fragile, that reverence sometimes means distance. To preserve these paintings is to accept that they belong partly to mystery, that they cannot be consumed endlessly, that they are gifts we hold in trust for the future. Rest now in this awareness. Imagine the caves sealed in silence, their walls breathing softly in darkness, their animals resting undisturbed. Outside, replicas glow with faithful light, allowing us to marvel without harm. The art survives because we step back, because we protect what is delicate. In that protection lies love, patience, and respect. When we look at the animals painted on the walls of Chauvet, Lascaux, and Altamira, We are not only seeing lions, horses, and bison, we are seeing ourselves. Across the gulf of time, across thousands of generations, the images speak to a continuity that binds us. They remind us that long before cities, before written words, before history was carved into tablets or inscribed on parchment, humans dreamed in images. To trace a line on stone, to leave a handprint, to fill a chamber with color. These were the first acts of remembering, of saying, we were here, and this is what we loved, what we feared, what we longed for. Consider the persistence of certain gestures. The hand pressed against the wall and outlined in pigment, echoed today when we press our palms into wet cement, or trace our initials into sand. The depiction of animals admired for their strength and beauty, echoed in the horses carved into medieval manuscripts, or the bulls painted by modern artists like Picasso. The instinct to use art to bridge the distance between life and mystery, to give shape to what cannot be spoken, remains the same. The caves remind us that we are not separate from those who lived 30,000 years ago. We are their heirs, carrying the same impulse to dream, to draw, to remember. Imagine standing in Chauvet, torch in hand. The lions prowl across the wall. You feel awe, wonder, humility. Now imagine standing in a modern museum, gazing at a canvas painted yesterday. The feeling is similar, the same spark of recognition, the same breath caught in the throat, the same hush of reverence. The forms differ, the pigments change, but the essence, the human impulse to create meaning, remains constant. The caves also remind us of fragility. Generations upon generations passed without seeing these images, yet they endured in darkness, waiting. When we uncovered them, we felt wonder, but also responsibility. Their preservation depends on restraint, on humility, on understanding that some treasures are not ours to consume freely. In this way, they teach us to value not only art but the delicate conditions that allow beauty to endure. Perhaps most moving is the realization that those ancient people were not so different from us. They loved, they feared, they sought connection, they gathered in groups, they shared rituals, they left marks to be remembered. Their voices are gone, but their hands remain. Their faces are unknown, but their visions surround us. In the painted animals and the silhouetted hands, we glimpse their humanity, familiar, tender, enduring. Rest without thought. You are part of the same thread, woven through millennia. The hand that shaped a bison's flank in ochre is kin to your own. The eyes that watched firelight shimmer across horses once held the same kind of wonder that you hold now. The caves whisper across time. We are connected. We are one story, one river flowing through stone. Allow yourself to be carried by that river. Imagine the painted walls glowing softly in darkness, the animals alive in firelight, the handprints resting like stars against stone. Feel yourself linked to them, past and present braided together. Across the silence of thousands of years, you are not alone. You are held by the human thread, unbroken, glowing still. We have wandered together through the painted caves, following the glow of torches and the hush of silence. We entered Chauvet, where lions and rhinos move across stone as though alive. We lingered in Lascaux, within the Hall of the Bulls, surrounded by herds of horses and towering figures that encircle like guardians. We lay beneath the crimson bison of Altamira, radiant and immense, glowing across the low ceiling. We have traced the pigments of earth, charcoal, ochre, manganese, substances humble yet alchemical, transforming stone into theatre. We have felt the walls themselves as partners in creation, their textures shaping animals, their contours guiding form. We have sat in ritual silence, listening to echoes, feeling how sound and image wove together in ceremony. We have placed our hands beside the first handprints, signatures pressed in breath and pigment, tender bridges between past and present. The mystery remains. Were these paintings prayers, hunting magic, dreams, or simply joy? We cannot know for certain, and perhaps we need not. Their power lies in endurance, in presence, in beauty that continues to speak without explanation. They have survived tens of thousands of years, weathering the silence of ages, resting in darkness until our eyes found them again. They remind us that time is vast, yet connection is immediate. As you drift now, let the images fade gently into dream. The lions sink back into shadow, the horses return to their endless gallop, the bison fold themselves into crimson rest. The handprints linger softly like stars across stone, whispering, "We were here, and you are here too." The caves grow quiet, the torches dim. The silence returns deep and protective. You are safe, you are resting, you are part of the long human thread that stretches back into the earliest glow of firelight. Good night.